first-degree murder. And as we hear from the Forest Park police, we hope to get more information on those charges. Let's see if we can listen in.
Police responded. They discovered there were 4 individuals that were shot, 3 of which were deceased on the train itself. A 4th victim was transported over to Loyola Medical Center over in Maywood, where they were later pronounced. Through coordinated efforts between Forest Park Police Department, Chicago Transit Authority, their security teams, as well as Chicago Police Department, we were able to find a subject description of the offender, broadcast that out to neighboring agencies, and Chicago Police Department officers were able to locate a suspect in this matter that matched the description given. That subject was taken into custody, identified by our investigative teams as well as our police officers, verified through the surveillance videos through Chicago Transit Authority. That subject was taken into custody and brought back to Forest Park. With that, the investigation concluded with our West Suburban Crimes Task Force and the detectives from the Forest Park Police Department. Earlier this afternoon, 4 counts of first-degree murder were approved for a Mr. Ronnie Davis, 30-year-old male from Chicago. With that, I am going to bring up our Detective Lieutenant, Daniel Pater, who's going to brief us a little bit further on this.
Could you spell your name as well?
Thank you, Chief. Yes, my name is Daniel Pater, P-A-T-E-R. I'm the lieutenant in charge of the investigation unit here in Forest Park Police Department. As the deputy chief said, yesterday about 6 a.m., Forest Park investigators were notified of 4 deceased at the Blue Line train. Forest Park investigators, along with the immediately we notified the Major Crimes Task Force, West Suburban Major Crimes Task Force, and along with the corroboration with the CTA security, CTA personnel, CPD, the suspect was taken into custody. At the time he was taken into custody, a weapon was recovered. Following the investigation throughout last night and early throughout today, the firearm, along with the spent shell casings on the train, the ballistics were performed, and the weapon recovered from the offender is in fact the murder weapon that was used to shoot 4 people on the train. As the deputy chief said, we were able to, with the assistance of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office, we were able to procure charges for first-degree murder for Ronnie Davis for 4 charges for the 4 victims of this heinous act. At that time, I will turn this over to the mayor.
Hello, my name is Rory Hoskins, and I serve as mayor here in the village of Forest Park. On behalf of the community, I want to thank State's Attorney Kim Fox for joining us this evening, as well as CTA President Dorval Carter. Before this incident and going forward, Forest Park has enjoyed a good partnership with the CTA. This was an incredibly unfortunate act, a criminal act, a loss of life that we all grieve for. And when we make statements calling for additional resources, it's really not to cast blame, so I want to make that clear. This outcome, this press conference, is the result of great collaboration between the Chicago Police Department, the Suburban Police Department, the Forest Park Police Department, and other partners who helped to solve this crime and bring these charges, having done all their due diligence. So having said that, again, I want to thank our police department for their hard work and the entire team here in Forest Park. I want to reiterate thank you to our partners, State Attorney's Office, Attorney Kim Fox, and President Carter, and I'll turn it over to State's Attorney Kim Fox.
Thank you. Good evening. Together we gather here today to address a horrific, heinous, and inexplicable act of violence that has impacted our communities. From the city of Chicago through to the village of Forest Park. As you have heard, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office has approved first-degree murder charges against 30-year-old Ronnie Davis, who shot and killed 4 people in the early morning hours of September 2nd on the CTA Blue Line. Our thoughts and deepest condolences are with the families and the loved ones of the victims as they navigate this truly unimaginable loss. Davis will appear in first appearance court tomorrow at the Maywood Courthouse beginning at noon. I want to thank the Forest Park Police Department, including Deputy Chief Christopher Chin, who is with us today, for their diligent investigation and their unwavering commitment to justice. Their partnership has been instrumental in bringing this case forward so quickly. I also want to commend the exceptional work of our Felony Review Unit, which was also relentless in its efforts to bring justice in this case. Their work in this case, in every case brought to our office, is a testament to their dedication and professionalism of this team, which works around the clock to keep our communities safe. In addition, I would like to recognize Mayor Rory Hastings of the Village of Forest Park for his strong leadership and support during this difficult time for his community. I too am grateful to have CTA President Dorval Carter here with us today. The safety of our public transportation system is critical, and I appreciate his ongoing efforts and commitment to ensuring that the CTA remains a safe and a reliable resource for us all. There is an absolute urgent need to address safety in our communities. We should be free to ride the train, to do yard work, gather with friends on a front porch. Public transportation should be a safe space for everyone, and we must work together to ensure that every resident feels secure in their daily lives, whether at home, at work, and traveling on our transit systems. No place or time should be off limits because of crime. Each of us here standing today in the Chicagoland area are feeling the impact of this. I would remind us that just 2 weeks ago, the city of Chicago hosted over 50,000 people for the Democratic National Convention. That Chicago demonstrated its beauty and its culture on a national and international stage. We lived up to our reputation of being a world-class city and what we know our communities can be. And the incidents over the last 24 hours is a stark reminder of how far we still have to go. So we won't tolerate these acts of violence that threaten peace and safety in our neighborhoods and prevent everyone from enjoying all that our county has to offer. As we seek justice for the victims, we remain steadfast in our commitment to work together to create a safer, more secure Cook County for everyone. With that, I will turn it over to CTA President Dorval Carter.
Thank you, Madam State's Attorney. At CTA, we care deeply about the safety and security of our riders. I want to express my appreciation to the CTA employees who worked tirelessly to assist during this investigation. As soon as this matter came to light, CTA immediately deployed resources to assist police in their investigation, including reviewing and providing relevant security camera footage that was vital in leading to an arrest in a very short amount of time. To our riders, we want you to know that we hear you and we understand your concerns about safety. The men and women of CTA are united in our commitment to make sure we're doing everything in our power to protect you, our riders, as well as our employees. We continually invest in security resources and measures that have done so over the last decade, which includes the expansion and upgrade of our network of nearly 30,000 security cameras, added security guards, and expansion of our volunteer policing program to expand the presence of police across our system. Plus, we continue to test out new technologies and deployment strategies. This heinous crime has shaken our community, not just the residents in Forest Park, but all who rely on CTA for transportation. We pray for those who lost their lives and offer our sincere condolences to their loved ones and all those affected by this terrible violence. I also want to extend my thanks to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office as well as the police and fire personnel who responded to this incident. While this investigation and prosecution remains ongoing, the CTA will continue its cooperation with the local law enforcement officials and the state's attorney's office to provide any additional information that they may need from CTA. And at this point, I will turn it over to Rachel Entler.
Good evening. At this time, we will entertain questions from reporters. I do ask that we remain on topic, one question per reporter, and then you can pass the mic.
CTA President Carter, among many issues this brings up, the issue of folks sleeping on trains. Were they homeless, and is CTA doing enough to ensure that there aren't folks that wind up sort of basically housing themselves on trains for their own safety?
Well, first of all, I can't speak to the question of whether or not they're homeless, whether or not these individuals were homeless or not. I think that's something that the state's attorney and the police will speak to at a later time. What I can tell you is that around the issue of homelessness itself, we have engaged and have provided more resources to support people who are homeless on CTA than ever in the history of our agency. That includes partnering with social service agencies who are out on the CTA every night, providing services to support them and to provide them options other than sleeping on CTA trains. Clearly, in this particular case, there were individuals sleeping on the train, but the issue of whether or not we are doing everything that we can to support them, I think the answer to that is yes. I think you heard the mayor speak earlier or yesterday about the need for additional resources to support the challenges that we face at CTA, in the village, throughout this entire area. And I support that call for additional resources. You're not going to solve homelessness, drug addiction, or mental health on CTA. You need to solve it in the communities where it exists. And that requires resources that go way beyond anything that the village can provide by itself or CTA. And I'm committed to continue to find the resources to do that.
President Carter, can you explain why violent crime incidents are up on the CTA year to date? I see 626 through this date last year and 626 through this year and 547 from last year.
Well, what I can explain is that we carry over 1 million people every day from the CTA. That's the equivalent of the city of Indianapolis. The vast majority of those people do not incur or are involved in any sort of criminal situation. Having said that, as I indicated just a second ago, there are bigger issues that we all need to focus on to address challenges that may be impacting public transportation systems across the country. CTA is not unique in that situation. Dealing with crime on CTA is a very complex issue that involves multiple layers of security and police resources to address it. But I would also remind you to keep in mind that you're talking about a system that has 145 rail stations, 1,500 rail cars, 1,800 buses, covers almost 240 miles of track, over 1,500 miles of bus routes, over 10,000 bus stops. It is huge. And we obviously are focused on how to address that as best as possible, and we're committed to continue to do that as we move forward.
Mr. Carter, did the new firearm recognition technology play any part in this case? And given the fact that these shootings happened inside of the rail cars, are you looking at expanding that from just the platforms?
Well, as you know, that technology has just been rolled out in the last couple of weeks. It's a pilot in which we're trying to determine how effective it can be or will be in the future. It was not a factor in this particular case. Having said that, the question of whether or not we'll expand it going forward is something that we'll evaluate once the pilot is complete.
Deputy Chief or Lieutenant, do you have any kind of discernible motive at this time that you can comment on? And also just, can you describe in more detail the effort using perhaps surveillance video to track down the suspect?
Surveillance video was key. Absolutely, partnering with CTA Security, that was absolutely key in apprehending the offender in this matter. As far as motive, that we're the state's attorneys and everything like that. We're still working on that investigation, but we don't have any motive at this time.
And just one, in terms of this, it took about 90 minutes to track him down. Is that correct? On Pink Lane train, was there anything in particular about his movements that or can you just describe, did he say anything, or was there just the effort to arrest him?
Once a suspect was ascertained, any information like that was ascertained from CTA security, they put it out to us, we put it out to the public and anyone that we could, and that was what essentially brought him into custody.
And sir, one last thing, our ABC 7I team has reported that Davis had a security guard license that expired perhaps at the end of July. Can you confirm that he was a licensed security guard at one point? Is that part of your investigation?
There's no part in our investigation that indicates that that's true.
For the law enforcement authorities here, can you talk about any prior contact with the suspect? I spoke to a couple of workers there today that said just 2 weeks ago, they called police on the same suspect, Mr. Davis. Apparently he had been, attacking some other folks. They claimed that a report may have not been entered. And so can you all confirm that 2 weeks ago to this day, did you all have any prior contact, speaking specifically to Forest Park, with the suspect, Mr. Davis?
Thank you. We don't have any contact. We haven't had any prior contact with Mr. Davis prior to yesterday.
Did Ronnie Davis have a previous criminal record, and could someone go into detail if that existed?
We will go into a full recitation of the facts as well as Mr. Davis's criminal history tomorrow at the first appearance court hearing.
Mr. Carr, I'm sorry, I just want to go back to you for a second. Is there a concern if the narrative turns out to be true that these folks were just sleeping on the train? And we do know that on certain train lines, specifically the blue line and the red line, folks that are unhoused may sleep there. Is there a concern for those that are unhoused that are sleeping that they may be targets? The reason I'm asking that question because it was put out yesterday that this is an isolated incident. There's no immediate threat to the community. Well, some would read this as there is a threat to those folks who are on these trains. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, I think the better question to ask is why are people sleeping on CTA? I can't answer that question for you in terms of what resources are available to them or what options they may have in their own personal situation. What I can tell you is that we are providing services to people on CTA that can provide them options other than sleeping on CTA if they so choose to take advantage of it. Beyond that, I don't really have an answer to your question. I think that's something that's much better put to people who are experts in homelessness and what's going on. What I will tell you is that certainly, as you have mentioned, people do sleep on CTA. Not necessarily homeless people, people in general sleep on CTA. That does not necessarily mean you're going to be a target. I think it's been stated before, and I agree, this was a very random, isolated incident. I can tell you in my career at CTA, I can't recall any sort of mass killing like this ever occurring. And so, no, I don't necessarily worry about homeless people being killed, but I do worry about homeless people being vulnerable because as it is the case with anybody, when you're on CTA, you need to obviously be aware of your surroundings and obviously take advantage of the opportunities that we may provide for you for other alternatives.
Mr. Carter.
Sorry, I'll just make it easier.
Mr. Carter, Charles Social Block Club. Is CTA planning on taking any additional security measures following this incident?
CTA on a daily basis reviews our security measures and works very closely in coordination with the Chicago Police Department, our partners at the Forest Police Department, and a number of other suburban communities to address what we think are concerns or issues that we need to address. And we'll continue to do that. As I indicated in my opening remarks, we take very seriously the ability to provide security and safety to our customers, and I have a group of employees who are dedicated to doing everything they can to make our system as safe as possible.
Lexi Suter, NBC5. Thanks for holding this briefing. In terms of the victims, getting in touch with their families, can you confirm, I know this question has been asked a couple times, if in fact they're homeless or not, or have you spoke to loved ones of them that have shared any information about who these individuals are?
At this time, of the 4 victims, we were able to make contact with at least 3 of the 4 next of kin from now on, or from here. The fourth individual, we're still trying to locate the next of kin. And as to whether or not they were homeless or not, we don't have any information that proves or disproves otherwise.
I just have one question and then maybe one quick follow-up. As I understand, the CTA police there were CTA police about 40 years ago, and in light of this, I know the cost of bringing something like that back might be astronomical, but is that something that could be looked at? And just on that note, as I understand it, suburban police departments don't immediately have access to CTA surveillance. In a case like this, obviously Chicago does. Is it worth expanding and kind of consolidating that system? And then if anybody can answer where in the pink line the apprehension was made, that would be great. Thank you.
So, you're right. The CTA Police Department was disbanded 40 years ago. Part of the reason that was done was that there was a belief, which I also believe in, that working through the Chicago Police Department, who had resources that were vastly more superior than anything the CTA could have, was a much more efficient way of providing policing services to CTA. Chicago Police Department does have a dedicated transit unit to the CTA, and so it's not right to just say that there isn't a dedicated police force. It's just contained within the Chicago Police Department. The camera system is something that we work in conjunction with all the police departments on. Certainly, we don't have any issue with expanding that to other police departments if they wish to have access to it. It is used mostly exclusively by the Chicago Police Department. And I know that in this particular case, Chicago Police Department was involved in supporting the Forest Park Police Department with the camera work that they were able to do. So the partnership that exists that allows for access to and use of that system is currently in place, and to the extent that any particular village or suburban area would want access to our cameras, we can certainly provide that to them.
But there's no plans in place to kind of expand the service further?
No, there's no plan in place, but the access and availability is always there. So, recognize that for many suburban police departments, there may be like one station or two stations that's in their entire suburban area. Whether they are interested in having camera services for that or not is really their decision to make. What I'm saying is that we're always available to provide that to them if they want it.
Lieutenant, can you tell us what kind of weapon it was and how many shots were fired approximately?
The weapon that was recovered was a Glock 43 9mm, and 6 rounds were fired and 6 casings were recovered.
Were they all shot on two train cars, or were they all shot on one train car, one ended up in the other?
They were shot, 5 were shot on one train car, 1 was shot on the other train car.
Was there a special call? Was the police response contained to the village, or did other forces come in to assist?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Did other forces, police departments come in from other areas to assist with the response?
Yes. So River Forest Police Department came in to assist, and then also we activated the West Suburban Major Crimes Task Force, which is surrounding agencies that comes together in a major event like this.
And were any of the nearby businesses impacted? Were people asked to shut their businesses temporarily, anything like that?
No, sir.
Detective, before you go, can you answer the previous question that I asked about where in the pink line the arrest was made?
Yes, it was 2011, South California. 2111? It's the California pink line stop.
California pink line stop?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who was arrested on the train?
In the platform.
Sure. I know lastly you said in terms of a motive, you all are still working in that area. Just looking at the surveillance video, can you all give us a little bit more? Was there any type of exchange between the...
You know what I'm about to say.
I'm sorry?
We're going to do a full bond proffer tomorrow with a full recitation of the facts. Again, this is fresh in the last 24 hours. I know there's a significant amount of details that you would like to have. We have approved 4 counts of first-degree murder. A full recitation of the facts will be given tomorrow at First Appearance Court at Maywood at noon.
Is it safe to say that this was a random attack?
I think it is safe to say that this was a random attack. To close this out for a moment, I know that there is deep concerns for people who ride the CTA, concerns that have been asked about here, and concerns about people who fall asleep on the train, and assumptions that have been made about the people who were on the train. And what I would suggest is that in the freshness of what has happened, that we take a moment, take a beat. That what happened is sometimes we want to have an explanation for the truly horrific and inexplicable. Allegedly, this man came onto a train while people were sleeping for whatever it is that they had done before, and pumped bullets into their bodies. It is horrific. We want answers. Right now, we don't have an answer as to why anyone would engage in such a heinous act. But as it stands, based on the information that's been presented by the exceptional work of the Forest Park Police Department in conjunction with the Chicago Police Department and our partners in the area, we have enough for purposes of charging first-degree murder. As this case plays out in court, many of these questions will be answered. I fear, however, the question of why may never be answered, because sometimes truly horrific, heinous, evil acts have no answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for attending today, and good night.
Thank you.
So we've been listening in to the Forest Park Police Department as well as the state's attorney, the CTA president, talking about this mass shooting that occurred yesterday, and now the charges officially being announced from the state's attorney and the Forest Park Police Department. Those against 30-year-old Ronnie Davis for the shooting of 4 people who were sleeping on the CTA Blue Line train on the holiday, and now we're learning more information about how they were able to track this man down. They say that surveillance video played a key role in this, and police saying that a weapon that through ballistics was able to be tied to the shooting was found on the offender. Now, the big question still not answered tonight is a motive. The state's attorney talking there as well as the police department about how they don't know. They have not identified a motive yet. State's attorney Kim Fox saying, you know, she wonders if they ever will, but they're still working to determine that. A lot of questions for the CTA president, Dorval Carter, about the safety of riders, all riders, but particularly riders who may not have a place to stay, those who may be sleeping, those who may be homeless. But a lot of those questions we still will be asking into the night and tomorrow as we work to get more information on this mass shooting. We will have much more on our news coming up at 10, but for now, thank you for joining us on this breaking news live coverage. Those updates at 10 o'clock. I'm Irika Sargent. We'll see you then.
This has been